So now that we've got our sheets of polymer clay, we can begin to dress our foil person, right? So we're not going to concern ourselves too much with anatomical landmarks or big masses like that. We just want to put just one sheet over everything, and then on that is what we'll begin to build on. As you can already tell, like let's say you were doing someone that was wearing, some sort of shawl like this would be one way of doing it. And then, it can be not done, but, it could be like the starting point to how you're going to do some drapery perhaps. So if your character's gonna be wearing a costume, you could do this method for dressing them, you know what I mean? But in this case, all we want is coverage. So I'm just pressing it in. And I'm just going to keep going. Some people will paint polymer clay glue or clay glue and all these other products. I don't think it's utterly necessary. It's just another way to squeeze $10 out of you, I suppose. It'll be easier so like the foil doesn't move at all, but it's just like an extra precaution that I don't think is utterly necessary. Unless your budget is, fairly unlimited, I suppose. I've always been a make do with what you have kind of sculptor, I suppose. So I've never used all of the industry standard things. So again, not too concerned with anatomical areas. I just want to make sure there's very little to no air between the sheet and the foil or the wire. So that's why I'm just going like this, just squeezing. Something to get into the habit of is seeing your sculpture from more than just one angle. So right now we're looking at him pretty straight on. I can turn him because he's very lightweight. But I mean, I have banding wheels where we could put this on and then spin him around. Most of you won't have that, so I'm not bothering with it. But just make sure that you keep moving your sculpture around so that you can see it from all angles to make sure you're not losing the posture or the position that you want. So right here, I'm starting the foot area. And that's what's going to hide the mechanism. So it's almost like he's just literally standing there. And you notice I have a habit of like at least, giving a little indication of what's supposed to be there, and a little bit of the foiling that I did gives us that. But I'm not bothering too much. Like right now, like it's almost like killing me where I really want to just beef this up a little bit, but I have to tell myself like, hey, chill. We'll come back to it in a little bit. We need to make sure that everything is pretty tight. And once you start adding a little bit of mass, you'll start to be able to compare the proportions a little bit and maybe adjust your armature a little bit, which is why these freestanding armatures with just these points of contact, other armatures will have like a pipe coming through here and stabilizing the core, so they're really stiff and really reliable. But when you have that, you have very little leeway. Like right now, I can go like this and change his posture a little bit because the freestanding armature isn't held down by any other external support system. So it's kind of one of those added bonuses where from here, once I start to kind of see the character come into the picture, I could then, change it as I go. See, that was like too much of a wide, like almost like he's about to lunge or give someone a hug or something. And I thought that was too much, so I just brought it in a little bit. And I'll just keep doing that as I keep bulking it up. And some people, when they get to about this stage, which we'll get to here in a second, where everything is pretty much covered, they will go ahead and bake it at this point. I don't like doing that at all. I like to have all the options of going as deep as I want, because if you bake this, this would all get hard, and then yeah, you could sculpt on top of it using a little bit of that Sculpey glue I mentioned. One, I don't have any, and second, I would rather have the clay body accept my tools no matter how far I want to go in. So I normally don't do that. I just wanted you to know that some people do it for their comfort so that it doesn't wobble too much. But wobbling is something that doesn't bother me as much. So it's up to your comfort zone. Like, let's say you want to make this really, really thin. Just make sure you make it really thin and then bake it for stability. You can totally do that. Now I'm just going to continue to beef it up here for a second. And then we'll start making some anatomical areas start to come through. Remember to make sure that you do the back as well. Like right now we've been really focused here on the front. So I'm going to turn them. See how there are areas that I didn't fully bulk up. Then in hindsight, it looks like here around the glutes, so like the butt area, I probably should have added a little bit more foil, but it's okay. I'll just have to pay for that with how much polymer clay I put there, which is not the end of the world either. So let's see here. Starting to find some sheets. Make sure I wrap it. So now that he's more or less fully assembled here, I'm going to go ahead and start adding the major, fatty areas or muscular areas up here. So this is like the chest area here, so like the pectoralis. So now let's get a little closer. So like usual, I won't really be using tools very much until I begin to really scrutinize the primary forms. Right now I'm still putting in the musculature. Put in some landmarks where the rib cage kind of starts, where the abs come in here. I'm not going to really make this kind of anatomical study, really is what it's going to be. I'm not going to really turn this into a character. This is more just a little demo to get you started on your Maquette journey, right? So I'm just going to do just a little bit of sculpting so you see how I use the clay, but I'm not really going for a specific character. I know that the person that we traced a little while ago is kind of like fairly muscular, very like exaggerated, almost like a superhero form. I'm going to do a little bit of that, but I might not make this one all too, unfeasible like that. I'll make it a little bit more realistic with some anatomical landmarks, but nothing too crazy. In fact, I might make this person a little bit more slender than the initial sketch suggested. Doing the obliques here. Gonna put in a little bit of the neck here. Now that I'm seeing it from the side, I think the front of the shoulders needs to come forward. And I can see that the obliques still need quite a bit down here. There you go. Now I'm going to do just a quick portrait here. I'm just going to give the indication of a little portrait, and then later I'll come back and refine it. For now, I'm just going to let the shadow under this brow ridge here be what kind of signals to the viewer that there's something going on in there, that there's perhaps eyes beyond the reach of our perception, but it kind of like gives an indication that there's a little bit of shadow there. Now I'll turn it to the side, and I'm gonna do the rest of the head. Maybe I'll give him a little bit more of a pointed nose, just slightly bigger nose, like that, yeah. Now that I'm seeing it from the side here, I think the chest is a little hollow right through here. I'm just going to add a little bit just to that area there. And I'm going to see what that did for the front view. Notice I still haven't used any tools. Just trust your hands for a little while, because right now you shouldn't be too attached to anything. And right now I'm just paying attention to how the highlights are hitting these structures. It's good to have reference, so if you have any anatomical books that you're looking at, or like if you're doing a creature, maybe aiming it at either a drawing that you've created or maybe some real world animals that you can pull inspiration and some anatomical landmarks from. Where I'm sure you've noticed that even in movies, creatures and that kind of thing, like they all have this earthbound analog that they kind of come from. So just make sure you have something that you're aiming at. So I'm fairly satisfied with what's happening up here. So I'm going to start to go to another area and keep building out from the middle, which is why I usually like to start at the torso. I also really enjoy torsos. It's just like a sculptural preference, I suppose. And now from here, I'll begin to scrutinize the rest as we go down, perhaps. Now I'm just going to keep going on the rest of the sculpture here. Going area by area, making sure I'm looking at my reference. And just continuing to refine, look at how the highlights and shadows are behaving, comparing that to my reference, and continuing to build from here.